You are live.
All right. Hey folks, so today we're doing an icicle demonstration. This is one of our 3 introduction classes. So we thought it'd be an awesome way to show you guys what it entails and give folks a chance to watch something like this before they actually sign up and take the class, so you can get an idea and see it a few times before we're jumping right in. Our classes are pretty short and quick. We want to make sure you guys are jumping on the torch, having fun, getting that experience in. So we keep our demos pretty quick during the class. So this will be a good opportunity for you to do some studying and some homework before you come in for your class. So the way we make our icicles, and I'll actually grab an example one in a second here, but we start with this triangular rod. You can kind of see it's a little bit like a prism. It doesn't quite cast rainbows the way a real prism would because the sides are not sharp, they're a little bit rounded. But it is a triangular piece of glass. And the whole goal with the icicle making is to get the glass just hot enough that you can twist it a little bit, but not so hot that it's getting molten and liquid and hard to control. So we use these triangular rods. It's a really nice way to create a really beautiful, what we call optic icicle. It casts really nice shadows, catches the light really nice, and so that's how we do that. I'm going to run and grab a sample just really quick so you can see what I'm talking about.
Don't start the camera on fire. That'd be great.
All right. So that is an optic icicle. So that's just getting that triangle rod just warm enough where we can spin one hand a little faster than the other, and that'll give a nice twist. The twists are all going to be related to your heat. So if you overheat an area, the twists are going to get really tight and it'll probably get skinnier. And so you'll hear me during the demonstration talking about leading your heat. As soon as you see an area twisting, you want to move your flame ahead of that area. That'll help you get a really nice, even twist. So with that, let's get started here. Got my triangular rod. I'm going to have an 8mm handle. We're essentially just going to be adding the 8mm handle to the end of the triangle rod so that we can spin one hand a little faster than the other to give it that twist. So we start always at the end of the flame, kind of warming things up a little bit slowly so they don't crack. And then leapfrog every 5 or 10 seconds, bringing the one from the back of the flame a little closer to the torch. Notice how I'm always spinning. Very, very few times in glass flame where you don't need to spin. Just trying to get these nice and hot so they flow together when we touch them. Now that they're both glowing, we're about ready. So we can join them together, spin in the flame for about 3 to 5 seconds to get a good connection, and then lift up and out of the flame. So we want to let that connection cool down. Right now, both hands are spinning at the exact same speed to avoid twisting. They're also spinning the same direction. Some of our other classes, we teach folks to bring out the towel and spin opposite directions, but that's only if we're trying to mix the glass. If we're ever in a straight line like this, the rule is pointed the same way, spin the same way. So both rods are pointing each other. You're always going to spin the same direction with both hands. All right, so now that my connection point is solidified, now we're going to do the move we call the typewriter. I think most folks still know what a typewriter is, but essentially we want to preheat about 3 inches of this triangular rod, building up a nice heat basin. So as you spin, just go left to right, nice and slowly. Not too slow, just keep a nice consistent pace, heating up 3 to 4 inches of this triangular rod. The more evenly we do this, the more even twists we're going to have in our icicle. If you kind of forget what you're doing and stall out and heat one area more, chances are that area is going to twist up really tight on your icicle. So we basically do this until you can feel some play or some movement within the glass. When we're getting the glass just hot enough to twist, the glass is not really going to be glowing. If you get the glass glowing hot, generally it's too hot. You might start to see a very, very faint glow, but anything brighter than like a dull peachish orange color is going to be too hot. So I've got some movement here now. So I am ready to start doing my twist. So I'm going to go down to the end where I connected my handle, always spinning, and then spin one hand a little faster than the other. Now it's starting to twist, so I'm going to move the whole thing to my right to keep my flame ahead of where it's twisting. Okay, continually moving it, the whole rod of glass to the right to stay ahead of the twist. So you can see how when it comes out of the flame on the right side of the flame, it's nice and twisted. I'm getting a really nice even twist. So I'm never getting that glass super hot. I'm definitely not forcing the glass, but I am putting a little more pressure with my right hand to get it to twist up like this. All right, so now I've got a nice 3.5 inch section that's all twisted up. The next step is to determine the top and bottom. We want to stretch the bottom of our icicle to a point. We don't disconnect it here. It's a really common mistake. We just stretch it to a point so it's ready to be disconnected when we get to that step. So it doesn't matter which end I do this on. A lot of times students will end up with one end thinner than the other, so then that just inherently becomes the bottom. I'm going to do my bottom right down here where my twists end, and it goes back to being a regular triangle rod. And so this step is just getting it warm again, nothing too crazy, and then lift out of the flame and pull apart and spin. Just give it a little taper. You can see how it's a lot thinner now, right at the bottom. But I didn't disconnect it. That's the bottom of our icicle. We need to go up to the top now and disconnect up here so we can add a loop. So if I were making this icicle to sell in the gallery, I would make my own loop. But loops are extremely hard. They could be a class in of themselves. So we pre-make the loops for students. So what you're going to do is heat it up right where you attach this handle and disconnect. Always stay in the flame and slowly pull apart so you don't pull a stringer. Okay, let that flame cut through. And now, you're going to take one of our pre-made loops and get the little nub at the tip there and get that nub really hot. Join them together in the flame, and you're going to push them together chunkier than what looks good. I call it kind of squeezing a donut. We want it to be a really thick connection, and then we'll take it out of the flame and give it a little stretch and kind of get rid of that donut. But that helps us ensure that we get a really good connection. So again, doing a little leapfrogging so they both get nice and hot. And if things touch before you're ready, don't sweat it. That's literally the next step. So now that they're both glowing really bright, I'm going to touch them together in the flame, keep spinning, squeeze that donut, go vertical. You can see that kind of chunky donut there. And now I can give it a little stretch to kind of get rid of that donut. But that helps make sure we get a really nice, strong, fluid connection there. All right, so we've got our loop on there. Our icicle is essentially done. We just need to get it off of our two handles here. So all of our loops are attached with a temporary handle called a punty. So those will break off pretty easily. This one looks like it's actually on there a little better than it should be, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So we're gonna melt off down here first. This one should break off, so we're gonna do the melting disconnection first, the tip of the icicle. So go back to the flame, right where you thinned it out. Heat it, and then slowly pull apart and let that flame cut through. So now we've got a nice pointed icicle. And now, to break this free, it should just take a little tap. Like I said, this one might be on here a little bit too hard, but hover right over the table so it doesn't have far to fall. And with the edge of your tweezers, tap on the punty. And it just pops right off like that. Then you're gonna pick it up. We're going to polish the very tip of that loop. There's a sharp spot where this punty was connected. So we need to polish that. Just hold the very tip in the flame until it glows for about 3 seconds. There we go. And there we have a finished icicle. So you can see how long they get. I only heated up like 3.5 inches and twisted up. You know, maybe I got to about 4 inches plus when I stretched it. So it's really easy to get carried away, and people make these really long icicles that end up being super fragile and they break right away. So we really try to keep them shorter than this one here. This is going to go into the kiln now, just cool slowly so that it doesn't crack. And I'm going to do that again, especially since we have this opportunity to watch a video so you can learn these steps. It's really nice to see it a few times. We don't do that in the classes. You get one demo, and we throw you to the wolves. So we start by joining a handle onto the end of our triangle rod. Get a good connection, and then lift up and out of the flame to let it set up. Always spinning. And then we're going to do the typewriter. Left to right over about 3 inches of triangle rod. How many of you guys out there have taken our Icicle class? Chime in if you have. Drop some knowledge on everyone else and pointers that maybe I'm not thinking of that you encountered when you took the class.
They're all shy.
All right, starting to get a little bit of movement. It's kind of nice and soft, not glowing, but it's got movement. So that tells me I'm about ready to start my twist. So we're going to go back to the end where I connected the handle. Keep that up and spin one hand a little faster, and as soon as it twists, move that twist out of the flame and stay ahead of the twist. We call it leading the heat. Kind of similar to welding. You kind of have to anticipate and stay ahead of your bead that you're laying down. You can always go back and twist an area more, but you can't untwist an area. I'm doing a little bit of typewritering right now just to try to get some areas a little bit more heat. You just don't ever really want to stall out too much in one spot. So I'm going to make the tip of the icicle right now. I've got some heat down here. I got it hot, came out of the flame and gave it a little stretch. So now I've tapered that icicle down to a nice point. And you can see this one, the twists aren't as tight. I didn't have quite as much heat in this one. I think these are really pretty. They seem to catch the light almost a little better. So next step is to disconnect our handle so we can put a loop up there. Always remember, you just stretch out the tip, you don't disconnect there. Probably the most common mess up in order of operations we see in the class.
Ooh, Noah took one of the originals when they were downtown. You guys did pendants and marbles in one class.
Uh-huh.
That was a long one, huh?
Yep. Long class, pretty exhausting, and none of them probably turned out very good. So that's
We've
why
learned.
we just do one project per class. All right, so got my pre-made loop, heating up the tip so I can join them in the flame.
You mentioned stringers before. What are stringers?
Stringers are thin pieces of glass, so there is definitely a time and a place for them, but not in our classes, and I'll tell you why in just a sec. So I joined it together, I'm squeezing that donut, I come out of the flame, go straight up and down, let gravity be your friend, and just give it a little stretch, kind of smooth out that donut. So we wait for this to cool. Stringers are what could happen when you disconnect two pieces of glass and you pull it out of the flame too soon. The stringers that are dangerous that we worry about are hair-thin strands of glass. I'll pull one here and I disconnect. They're very thin. They're so thin, in fact, that they're flexible. And as a quick, cool side note, because there's actually a ton of technology that we use every day that involves glass beyond what most people think. But at this day and age, most of our internet is delivered through fiber optic cable. And that's actually a bundle of hair-thin strands of glass, and that's why it acts as a cable, is that it can bend around corners, because when the glass is that thin, it is flexible. So, if you pull a stringer, you're going to get it really hot, and then you get a little too excited, and you come out of the flame as you pull apart, and you get these hair-thin strands of glass. I don't know if you guys can see that.
Yeah.
But it's really flexible, really thin and dangerous. They make horrible slivers, and I've almost gotten them in my eyes before. So we always mitigate that by just staying in the flame, letting the flame cut through. If we do pull one, we're going to melt it down using the flame. It will fire little balls of glass across the bench. So if anyone has a grudge in the class, don't stand across from that person.
There they go.
They might fire some stringers off at you.
Pew pew.
All right. So I'm just going to melt down the tip of my icicle so it looks good here. There we go. And to break it off, we're going to use those tweezers. Hover right above the table and just give it a little tap. If it doesn't come off from one direction, give it a flip 180 degrees. Sometimes there's more or less stress in the glass from a certain angle. So that's what I did there to get that off. I'm going to polish the punty mark. Get it glowing for about 3 to 5 seconds. Careful not to heat too much of the loop or you'll just close that loop right up. All right, and there's another icicle. Another pretty big one. I'm not doing a very good job of keeping these as the size we want our students to make them, but this is a little shorter. All right, so that's how we make the clear optic icicles. Now, if things are going well in the class and you're getting those dialed in, generally after about 4 or 5 of those, if things are going well, we will introduce color. So colored icicles are a little harder. They have an additional couple steps. Here's an example of one of those. It's one of my gold ones. I came out with these a few years ago and I realized that if I thinned out my amber colored glass, it actually produced this really pretty gold. And so essentially instead of using triangular glass to twist, we're going to use a round cylinder of glass, add 2 stripes of color on opposing sides, and then twist that up. So the forming of the icicle is the same, but getting the color on there is definitely different. So to do that, you're going to have your color and your clear. Now, the instinct is to want to get the blue glass hot and just pull it down the rod. The problem with that is that if you are in this flame, pretending that it's on, and you're doing that and you're pulling down, and you accidentally come off of the clear glass, you're going to lose all that resistance, and then this hot blue glass is going to go right into the face of the torch and stick to it and plug it and ruin the torch. My torch is super expensive. The ones we use in class are still like $400 or $500. So we definitely don't want to do that. So to mitigate that, what we do is we push down towards the bench to feed in the blue glass into the flame, and then push up and away with the clear glass. It achieves the same striping process, but then you're never putting that pressure pulling down towards the torch face. So that's really important when you're adding these stripes of color. These are actually the very first thing I learned how to make in my apprenticeship 17 years ago with these icicles. All right, so we need to preheat our section of glass. You can kind of see I've got a bump here where we welded 2 of them together. Everything above that bump is going to be my icicle. We need to preheat that section. Since we're not using both hands in sync like we were for the typewriter, we call this move playing the violin. Very similar, but you're just going back and forth like the bow on a violin, if you're left-handed maybe. Preheating 3 to 4 inches of that cylindrical clear glass rod. Also keeping the colored glass in the back of the flame, getting the tip of that hot. And notice how I'm holding the colored glass. I'm holding it kind of like a modified pencil grip. Hopefully that's not how you learned how to write, but similar process. We're going to hold it a little bit more like a pencil. So you don't want to preheat the clear glass too much. If you see it bending or moving, you've got plenty of heat in there. So I'm going to stop now before I get to that point. And now to get the angle set up, you want to keep your clear glass right underneath the flame as close to parallel with it as you can. Okay? And you're going to come from straight above with your colored glass, touch it to the tip, pushing down with the colored rod and pushing away with the clear one. I'm not putting much pressure with my blue rod at all. I'm doing most of the work with my clear one, pushing away. And you want to keep that flame right in that kind of chicken wing there, focusing on the heat on the blue rod and not the clear. If the clear gets too hot, it's going to flop over on you and then it kind of makes a mess. So keep that clear one right underneath the flame, but still keep it out of the flame. Do the same thing on the opposite side here. And just take your time. Once you get it started, things slow down a little bit because you had all that heat in the glass. And now you got to wait for that glass to get hot again. So don't force it. Don't worry. It will go. Just take your time. And now we have 2 stripes of blue glass down our cylinder. So from here on out, everything's the same. You're going to heat up a handle, stick it onto the end, maybe typewriter a little more to build up some heat, although you shouldn't have to do much. As you can see right now, I'm even playing the violin, trying to keep this whole section warm while I get my handle hot. All right, we'll join those 2 together. Lift out of the flame to kind of let that set up. You could even do some typewritering while you're waiting for it to set up. Just don't heat that area that you're trying to get to cool. That'd be counterproductive. All right, and your color is going to glow. The color glows before clear glass does, just because it doesn't have the ability to transmit light as well as the clear glass. So it's not that the colored glass is hotter than the clear, it just shows its heat at a lower temperature. So you can see the blue's got a bit of a glow, probably ready to start my twist. So we'll go down to the end where I attach the handle. And spin one hand just a little faster than the other. Once it starts twisting, get out of that flame. Move the whole thing towards the right and lead the heat. Go. So, I'm going to conserve some pre-made loops here and make my own just so you can see how the loop is made. We always show students this, they're welcome to try, but it is quite a bit harder. So right now I'm heating up what I want to be the tip or the bottom of the icicle. Give it a little stretch out of the flame. If you do it in the flame, it'll get too hot and get really thin really quick, and you'll probably disconnect it because you forget that that's not the next move, but it's your instinct because you're getting it so hot and you're stretching. There we go, we got a nice little taper. I'm going to switch hands because I'm right-handed and I always make my loops with my right hand. So now we're going to heat up at the opposite end to make the loop. As I mentioned in my memorial pendant video at the beginning of the week, loops are all about timing and heat. You have to get the right heat in the right place, move at the right speed, and it all has to align to get a nice loop. So I've got my heat in the glass. I'm going to come out of the flame and stretch it. I'm going to bend it further forward than I want, and then bring it back around and touch it down. Now it looks a little funky, but a little heat and gravity is going to center that up pretty nicely. And I might just have to touch it up with the tool a little bit. In glass flame, gravity can be your best friend or your worst enemy. Right now I'm using it to be my friend to help straighten things out a little bit. We'll use our brass reamer here to kind of open up the hole, round it out, make it look a little better. And now we're ready to finish it up. But now we don't have a punty. Typically if you used a pre-made loop, you'd have your punty here. We don't have that. We have a solid welded on hot connection here, so we're gonna have to melt this off. So I'm gonna heat it up right at the tip of my taper. Once it droops, then I'll grab right through the loop with my tweezers and then stretch it off. Going straight down, going into the flame, letting that flame cut through. So I pulled a bit of a stringer. That just helps get a nice taper to it. And I'm going to melt that stringer down right away so there's no chance of getting a sliver from it. So that is how you make a colored icicle. So I'll do that one more time, a little faster so you can see it a little more in real time. This is one of those projects that there's so much to talk about that I actually have to work a little slower just in order to cover everything that needs to be talked about. There it is.
How many icicles do you think you've made?
A lot. You know, luckily in the past probably 5 years I've had a lot of apprentices to help out with those. But before I had apprentices doing them, I would imagine, I think I had probably done, I don't know, close to 10,000, something like that. You go through a lot. All right, so I'm playing the violin, preheating up my clear section. Just realized I'm cheating though, I'm using the big flame. You guys don't have that in your class, so let's go back to class flame. There we go. Getting the tip of my blue rod nice and hot as well. That should be about good. I'm going to come underneath the torch, trying to get that clear rod as parallel to the flame as I can. Touch it to the tip, push down with the blue rod, and then push up and away with the clear. You'll see my fingers getting closer to that torch face with my left hand as I'm pushing that clear one away. And the blue glass never really gets closer to the torch. Okay, there's a nice 4-inch stripe. We never want to go more than that. Again, those icicles get pretty long pretty quick, so try not to get carried away. It's really easy in the moment when you're just having fun and getting the feel for these things to get overzealous and make a 10-inch long icicle, but trust me, they break a lot easier when they're that big. Alright, there's my 2 stripes. Grab our handle. Still playing the violin, trying to keep that whole section as warm as I can. And the great thing about the icicle class is that it's all up to you how many you get to make. So, you know, what we always encourage students is don't go for glory on the first one. The first one's kind of, you know, one that you got to get out of the way. It's not going to look that great typically. So just get it done with, don't worry about perfection, and then you can kind of move on and keep improving with each one. Generally, most students get 5 to 10 icicles out of a class. So you can get a pretty good haul, especially if you're doing like Christmas ornaments to give away to people, or just a lot of students come in every year and just make 10 more for their tree. So we'll go to the end with the handle. Start spinning one hand a little faster. I spin my right hand a little faster. And then once it twists, jump ahead with that flame so that the area that's twisted is outside of the flame. Go. I'm going to put my bottom on the end with the handle. That's just how I prefer to do it. Doesn't really matter which way you do it. So heating that up again. Once it's hot, I'll come out of the flame and give it a little stretch. Starting to get a nice taper to that icicle. With these twists on here, it's kind of like a barber pole. It's a little mesmerizing. You think you're looking at the same spot, and pretty much all of a sudden your eyes end up at the other end of the icicle. Now we'll do a loop again here. A little easier to do if I'm not trying to explain every step of the way. I can focus on actually the timing a little bit better, so that one went even better than my first one. So using some gravity to help bring it down. Use our brass framer to round it out. And we'll melt it off. So that's what our icicle class entails. Just, 90 minutes of this. So it's a really fun class to get a bunch done and strive for, perfection over, a 60 to 90 minute period.
And this class is offered all year round. It's not just offered in the winter.
Right now we're kind of losing our snow. So suddenly this becomes the sun catcher class instead of the icicle class. So same class, just a different name depending on the time of year. That goes into the kiln. So yeah, that's a super fun class. We generally say, of our 3 introduction classes, the wine goblet's the easiest, pendant is second most challenging, and then icicle is the third most challenging. It's still a beginner class, you don't need any others before taking it, but if you were thinking about doing a series and a progression of easiest to hardest, save the icicle one for last. It takes kind of the most coordination. But folks jump in all the time as their first class and make tons of icicles. And one thing I did want to mention too, we have an awesome clearance sale coming up. So for Earth Day, we're going to do kind of a spring cleaning sale, and obviously we're not going to be open come that weekend yet. So we're going to do it online. So in our navigation menu, you can go to the clearance section. There's a lot of awesome artwork there that we've just had around for too long. It needs a great home, and some really good prices on it too. So now's a chance for you guys to check all that out. We're going to be adding more over the next week or so here. We've got a bunch ready to go. I just need to photograph it and get it up on the website. So again, thanks everyone for supporting small businesses. Stay safe out there. We appreciate your support, and look forward to seeing you.